We've been looking at algebra, and we're still going to be doing something algebra-y, but we're going to look at another chapter which we did before Christmas that has a bit of crossover with algebra, and that's coordinate geometry of the line. Now, before Christmas, you probably remember learning about equation of the line. And the equation of a line, or the line, is when we have a line on a xy axis, a Cartesian plane it's called, okay, where we have a line and maybe it's just a short line, it's like this, okay, and we have to find out what the equation of this line is. And the first thing we did was we wrote down what the coordinates were that were on the line. So we would have written down these coordinates here, and then we found the slope. And once we had the slope, we used one set of coordinates on the slope, and then we used a formula like this one. Y minus y1 equals mx minus x1. And that gave us the equation of a line. Okay, well, for the last few weeks we've been looking at equations, and we've been solving equations, and we've been shortening them and simplifying them, and we've looked at equations with fractions in them. And the thing we've done last week was simultaneous equations. Now, simultaneous equations are used in coordinate geometry of the line, okay? And so is graphing lines. You'll use equations when you're graphing lines. Now, graphing lines just means drawing a line, okay, on the xy axis. Now, each of these equations, here's an equation here, 2x plus y equals 6, and here's another equation, 2x plus y equals minus 2. Both of these equations can be drawn as lines on the xy axis. And the way that we figure out sort of where these lines are on the xy axis is something called the T method. And you've done it before, just before Christmas, but it's okay if you've forgotten. And the T method is where you draw out a big T like this, and on the left-hand side we say let x equal 0, and then over on the right we say let y equal 0. Is it coming back to you? If not, no worries. So on the left-hand side, I'm going to rewrite the equation, this equation here. We'll ignore this one here for the moment. This is the example. So on the left-hand side, I'm going to rewrite this equation, but instead of x, I'm writing in 0. Okay? Everything else is the same. So I'm letting x, I'm saying, okay, x is 0, and when you have 2 multiplied by 0, well, that's 0. So what ends up happening is you're left with y is equal to 6. Okay, now I know when x is 0, y is 6. So do you remember when we were doing coordinate geometry, we had brackets and we had 2 numbers inside, and those 2 numbers were coordinates. Well, here the first coordinate is always the x coordinate, and x is 0, and y we just found out was 6, so 0 and 6. Brilliant. Okay, now this one over here we're letting y equal 0, so again I'll rewrite the equation. 2x plus, now y is equal to 0, so I'm putting in a 0 instead of the y, equals 6. Now that means that 2x is equal to 6. We can just ignore the 0 because 0 is nothing, so it's not there. Now I want to get rid of this 2x, I want it just to be 2, so I divide both sides by 2. They cancel, so you're left with x is equal to 6 divided by 2, which is 3. Now, we have the coordinates from here, now we have to get a coordinate here. So we have x is equal to 3, and that is when y is equal to 0. So our coordinates on this side must be 3 and 0. Okay, I want to put these coordinates, I want to mark them on my xy axis. So first things first, 0 and 6. So 0 on the x-axis and 6 on the y-axis, okay? So I've marked my first point. And then over here, it's 3 and 0. 3 and 0 on the y-axis. Now I've got the 2 points. All I need to do is to get my ruler And once I have my ruler, I line it up with the 2 points just like this. And then I draw a line going through the 2 points. Now, this equation, 2x plus y equals 6, this equation represents this line. And the way I found it out, the way I found out how to draw this line, is I found where this line, this equation, crosses the x and y axis. Every line that's drawn on this xy axis, on this Cartesian plane, every line has to cross the xy axis at some stage. Even if you drew a line up here, way up here, you're thinking, that's going to go off here, off the page, and off here. It's not going to cross the xy axis. But the xy axis doesn't just stop here. It stops here on this image. But the xy axis continues up and up and up, and it continues across. So any line here will eventually cross the x and the y axis, unless it is a horizontal line or a vertical line. But don't worry about those for the moment, okay? We're talking about lines that will cross both the x and the y axis. Okay, so I found out where it crosses the x-axis, where it crosses the y-axis by using the t method. I got the coordinates, I made little marks, and I drew a line through them. So I have drawn the line. Brilliant. Okay, now I want you to pause the video and have a go at this equation here. This equation can also be drawn as a line, and it will also cross the xy axis. And I want you to use the t. I want you to use the t method, just like we did above, to find out the 2 coordinates that will tell us where it crosses the x and the y axis. So let x equals 0, let y equals 0. So pause the video here, have a go. Okay, hopefully you've had a go, and we will do it now. 2 and x is equal to 0, plus y is equal to minus 2. Well, 2 by 0 is 0, so you're left with y is equal to minus 2. Now on the left hand side, x is equal to 0, and y is equal to minus 2. We have our coordinates. On the right hand side, y is equal to 0, so it's 2x, and then plus, now y is 0, 0 equals minus 2. So we're left with 2x is equal to minus 2. I want to get rid of this 2, which is being multiplied by this x. So I divide both sides by 2. All right? They cancel, so you're left with x is equal to minus 2 divided by 2. So let's deal with the sum first. 2 divided by 2 is going to be 1. Now, a negative number divided by a positive number is negative. Okay, so it's minus 1. 2 goes into minus 2 minus 1 times. So now I know that the x number in this coordinate is minus 1 and the y is 0. I have my 2 sets of coordinates, so I'm going to go over here and I'm going to mark them. So 0 minus 2, 0, down to minus 2. And then here we have minus 1 and 0. So we have minus 1 on the x-axis and 0 on the y, so it's here. Excuse me. Now I'm going to get my ruler, and I'll bring it across to here, and that's good enough. And I draw a line. Now it can be a short line or it can be a long line. This is not perfect because it's not going perfectly through the 2 points. So that's the first line from this equation, and this is the second line from this equation. The email that I've sent this with, there's an attachment with a few different types of sums. Have a go at them. If you're stuck at any, take a picture, send them to me. And after you've had a go, also take a picture and send them to me. If you have any problems, let me know, and I'll be happy to help.